Hello and welcome everyone to SNHU's Career Day 2024, our free virtual conference open to students, alumni, faculty, and staff from anywhere around the globe. We're thrilled to have such a diverse audience with us today. I'm Amy Ames, your host for this session, and I want to ensure that your experience here is as smooth and enriching as possible. So let's get started with some important announcements. Before we dive into the exciting content lined up for today, take a moment to familiarize yourself with our virtual conference platform, Teams. You'll find features like live captioning, various written language options for the slides, the ability to move through slides at your own pace should you wish, and the chat box, which you can open by selecting the chat icon at the top of your screen. In the chat box, we've included instructions for using the Teams features mentioned. This session will feature a 30-minute presentation followed by a 15-minute question and answer portion at the end. You may notice cameras and microphones have been disabled so everyone can focus on the presenters, but we encourage you to actively participate throughout the session. Use the chat to submit your questions for the Q&A at the end, and don't miss the opportunity to network with fellow attendees. Your engagement is what makes Career Day dynamic, and the value of the connections you can make cannot be overstated. One great way to do this is by sharing your first name, career area of interest, the area you live in, and your LinkedIn profile to connect with others. If you haven't already, make sure to check out the Career Day agenda for other sessions that may be of interest to you throughout the day. We have a fantastic lineup of sessions, and the virtual format allows you to join and leave sessions at your convenience throughout the day. The sessions will also be recorded, and you'll have access to them post-conference on YouTube. When the recordings are ready, the links will be sent to you via email. So if you missed something or want to revisit a session, you can do so at your own pace. Due to the sessions being recorded, cameras and microphones have been disabled for the presentation. Let's create a respectful and inclusive space for everyone. I trust that each of you will contribute to maintaining a positive environment throughout the session. Be mindful of your language and interactions. Do not share any offensive or highly personal content, and do not photograph, screenshot, or take personal recordings. If you encounter any technical issues or need support during the conference, don't hesitate to reach out to the IT service desk. Next slide, please. At SNHU, creating an inclusive and accessible learning environment is a priority. Your experience is crucial, and if you require accommodations, please reach out to the respective centers. Online students can email oac@snhu.edu or call 866-305-9430. Campus students can email cac@snhu.edu or call 603-644-3118. And SNHU staff and faculty can email hr@snhu.edu. With that, we've covered the essentials for a smooth and engaging conference experience. Thank you for joining us for Resumes and Applying for Jobs. Get ready to be inspired, learn, and connect. Now, let's learn a bit more about our presenter to get started. Ben Steinbach is a former technical recruiter passing along how to get your resume looked at and give yourself the best chance at getting a call for an interview. So without further ado, I'll pass the virtual microphone over to Ben Steinbach.
Hey, good afternoon, folks. My name's Ben Steinbach, and I'm here today to talk about resumes. Prior to coming here to SNHU, I spent the bulk of my professional career in the IT industry as a technical recruiter, working in the private sector, Department of Defense subcontracting space, and for a time with the federal government. And from this, I gained interviewing skills, a bunch of technical and operational knowledge, ran across some pretty cool technology and projects. But ultimately, it was my job to sell people on paper to give me the best shot at having my applicant selected so I could make a buck. So you got to keep a roof over your head at the end of the day. All right, moving on to, there we go. All right, today we'll be discussing resumes from a little bit of a different perspective to help give yourself the best chance at getting a call for an interview. There are plenty of resources out there on how to write bullets, what to include as experience, and how a resume is structured. I'm sure I could give you the same information here, but instead I'll be sharing with you how resumes are written and why things should be presented in a certain way from an insider's perspective in order to more effectively sell yourself to the reader. Let's start with what a resume isn't. Yes, a resume is a history of your jobs, what you've done on the job, some highlights of what you've done for an employer or successes that you've had. But that isn't all. This will feed into the importance of resume customization that we'll be talking about later. What a resume is. Your resume is actually a sales document pulled together for an audience of one person. Uh, Resumes honestly get about 20 to 25 seconds of a quick eyeball scan before the reader decides to move on to the next applicant or to continue looking at yours. Your job is to keep that hiring manager's eye on your resume for as long as possible by showcasing relevant knowledge, skills, abilities, personal qualities, and traits that individual is hiring for. The longer that you can keep their eye on your document, the higher the likelihood it is that you'll be getting a call. And especially, you've got to spoon feed to them exactly what they're looking for in an applicant. So let's get into your resume here. Resumes are used in a couple of different ways. Most folks, when starting a job search, will post a resume on sites like Handshake, Indeed, LinkedIn, ZipRecruiter. This is fine when you're trying to get yourself noticed. The first major thing to be aware of is that hiring managers and recruiters have access to these platforms from a searchable perspective using keywords. As a recruiter, for example, I might be looking for a software developer who knows C++, Java, and is familiar with MS SQL. Those are the words that I'd put into my initial search string to start filtering potential candidates that I'd want to contact. And with this in mind, if you're looking for a job and don't have any of the relevant keywords in your resume as it relates to the work that you're hoping to get, you won't be coming up in a recruiter's search. It's important to take a look at least two or three job descriptions for the type of job that you're hoping to land and get some of those knowledge, skills, abilities, and personal qualities and traits into your document so that it will come up in a search. For applying to jobs, and this is really one of the few takeaways I'd like you to leave with today, is that you'll need to thoroughly custom tailor your resume specifically to the job that you're applying for. It's important to keep in mind that there will ultimately be a person at the other end of your application that will be reading and judging your resume for the job that you're applying to. It might be going to someone in HR to begin with, but ultimately your resume will be getting to a team lead, a department head, the hiring manager. Um, I imagine for the yeah, for the role that you're applying for. Sorry, guys. And it's likely they may have had a hand in writing the job description. If they're not seeing what they're looking for within the first 20 to 25 seconds of skimming your resume, they'll be moving on to the next one. Your job is to draw them in for a closer look by feeding back to them what they're asking for in that job description. Even if you don't have all of the job skills or experience needed for a particular role, employers can be curious to discuss with you how you'd be a good candidate if you show as much alignment to the role in as many aspects as you can. Employers do rely on qualifications, but not just those alone. They're looking for the right person for the job. When looking at your resume, they're trying to imagine you working for them within their corporate environment, how you'd look like working as part of a team, and potentially interfacing with their clients or customers. Even if you have all of the knowledge and skills required for the job, if they're not getting a sense of who you are and what you look like on the job or how you operate, they're going to be moving on to the next applicant who would be a better fit for the role. You've really got to sell yourself to the role by leveraging your resume as more of a marketing piece that highlights and explains why they should select you over someone else. Resume customization. It's pretty easy to do. Takes a little bit of practice, but the job description will have pretty much everything that you need in it to begin customizing your resume. It'll have all of the knowledge, skills, abilities, KSAs, in there that you'd need to write to. If an employer is asking for someone with a particular skills, like working with certain databases, different phone systems, words per minute, programming languages, certifications, attributes such as attention to detail, what customer service looks like, you pull those from the job description and write specifically to those and give that to the reader to take a look at. Just make customization. Oh, there we go. All caught up. How to write impactful bullets. When it comes to writing impactful bullet points for the reader, the STAR method works well. There are other methodologies and acronyms out there for how to write impactful bullets, but this one covers the basics. You're essentially creating a short story that's about a line and a half to 2 lines max that describes what your circumstance was, what you did, and the results of your actions. You want to highlight to the reader how you are effective at what you do and what your impact on the business or the customer experience was. Got a couple of samples coming up here. Okay, so writing bullets does take some practice. In this example, we have answer phone calls. That's can be just part of your job description is what you did on a day-to-day basis. Um, but if you were to rewrite it to say answer an average of 25 inbound calls per day with the ability to engage clients in a friendly and engaging way while directing them to the correct department, it showcases more of you and what you're bringing to the table. The trick here, again, is to showcase something about you and what you're bringing to the table that an employer would find valuable to them and their organization by attaching a skill or something descriptive about what you do on the job. In the second example, you could uh, look here, help customers find items in the store, as opposed to recognized by management for professionally engaging with customers and providing exceptional customer service experiences with every interaction. You see how the tone changes and it really sells more about you to the reader. Um, the- and you could also write this one to reflect other things such as good active listening skills or using critical thinking and problem solving abilities to deliver what the customer is looking for. So it's a little bit about wordsmithing and showcasing your impact and effectiveness in the role. Hey, there's that one. I'm going to get used to this Teams things after all. Hang with me, guys. All right. Example 3. On this one, see how things have a different impact when you could be sharing the scope of what your job covers and tie it to a communication skill. This one's pretty important, especially in the IT industry, but for lots of different jobs, is to show that you have good communication skills. That this is valued by employers. It's often seen on job descriptions for, good communication skills. This is how you can write a bullet that speaks to that. All right, applying for jobs. By show of hands or emojis on your end, how many people have heard this phrase? I've sent out 100 resumes last month and haven't gotten a single phone call back. Yep, there's a bunch right there. Yeah, so this is something that actually is quite common. But when it comes to applying for jobs, it's important to understand the reality of how things work behind the scenes. And I hear this phrase all the time. Sent out 100 resumes, haven't gotten a phone call back. And this is something that you may already be experiencing or will be about to experience if you're just starting to look for work now. Most companies rely on some sort of applicant tracking system or resume screening software to weed out potential applicants. And depending on the type of role or the company, like large companies, they could potentially get anywhere between 50 to 300 applicants for one single job, and they rely on this type of software to restrict the flow of resumes getting to their HR department. And here's the most important part of my presentation here. And if you walk away with nothing else, walk away with this. In most cases, in between you and the employer, there's a layer of software that doesn't care about who you are, what past jobs that you've had, your work ethic, or how much of a good fit you could be for an opportunity that you're applying for. This software is looking for something called keyword match rate. In short, if your resume doesn't have enough of the keywords from the job description in it, that software will prevent your resume from moving forward to an actual human being. Goal number one is you have to beat the software first by taking the time to thoroughly customize your resume using keywords from the job description in order to give yourself the best shot at getting in front of a human set of eyes. Always keep in mind, you have to beat the software first. And let's dig on how to do that. Okay, to start with, just a quick note on formatting. In the next couple of slides, I'll be showing you the wrong and the right way of how resumes should be formatted. So let's dive in here with number one. So this is an example of how a resume should not look. There's a lot going on in here. I've got a really cool template that I found with my picture on it, a graph, and some basic bullets that really aren't that impressive. I'm guessing that your eyes are likely darting all over the place looking at this. So you've got to keep the reader in mind. If they're not able to easily access what they're looking for with all these distractions, they might be missing out on something important that you'd have in a template like this. And secondly, think of the software that your resume is going to be processed through, like an applicant tracking system. To you visually, it may look fine, but once it's processed, it may come through as garbled. Sections might be out of place, or especially in the case of boxes with graphics or boxes with other text in it, just completely missed. The same thing, more of a sidebar note, never put your contact information in a header. Always keep it in the body of the text because headers can get missed too. And if your resume is great, they might be missing your contact information. So always make sure to include everything in the body of your resume. That being said, more visually appealing resumes are reserved for networking events like job fairs or even a hand to someone when going in for an interview. And here is my example of a standard resume template. See how it's just kind of much easier on the eyes. I kind of start at the top and start skimming down into the professional summary, quickly hit the skills section to see what's there, and typically start with the professional summary followed by a skills bank. These will be read first. Depending on your experience level or if you're changing industries, you might have your education at the bottom of your resume or have your education directly underneath the skills area first, and then proceed on to your professional experience. And this layout and format, it's not only visually easy to digest, but it's also able to be more accurately processed through resume screening software. One quick note on having an objective as opposed to a professional summary. Uh, Keep in mind that it's not so much about what you're looking for as much as it is to highlight your alignment specifically to the role that you're applying for. Okay, so this site is called JobScan. It's not an error up here. It's jobscan.co, not .com. You can sign up for a free version of this, and I think you get 5 free scans per month. But on this site, you can run your resume against the job description, and it will kick back a report with your keyword match rate, along with a list of keywords that are in the job description. And anything with a little red X next to it is a keyword that is missing from your resume. Your job is to work in as many keywords as into your resume in order to boost your keyword match rate to a bare minimum of 65%. It doesn't matter where those keywords appear in your document. It could be in your professional summary, your skills, relevant coursework, in your experiential bullets. Again, doesn't matter where, just in. And it really comes down to it's not just a matter of tweaking your resume here and there, but is instead a thorough customization of your resume specifically to the job that you're applying for. This takes time. For every resume you send out, it could take about an hour or so to go through your document, to make those adjustments, and to highlight how you specifically would be a fantastic applicant for the job. That investment of your time has a payoff, as it means the difference between getting the job that you want as opposed to taking a job that you can get. It also means that the difference between sending out 100 resumes and hearing nothing back versus sending out 10 highly customized resumes, you're likely to get 2 or 3 phone calls back. And if you think about it, what's an hour or so of your time on the front end that will have a direct impact on your happiness levels for the next 3 to 5 years of your life. Doing this also has a bit of a side benefit. By ensuring that you're getting as many keywords as you can into your resume, you'll not only be beating the software, but it will also have an impact on the reader as well. Hiring managers, to them, it'll show that you've taken the time to align yourself to the role, which in turn shows a higher level of interest in pursuing the opportunity. So before I hand things off to QA, there are a couple of little items here I'd like to cover. For anyone looking for federal work, federal resumes and private sector resumes are two very different types of documents. Federal resumes typically run, 2, 3, 5 pages long, and the way the bullets are written is very different. Whereas private sector resumes are typically 2 pages. And I'm getting a note here that I missed one thing a little bit toward the beginning of the presentation. The whole 1 versus 2 page resume thing. The 1 page resume started out as a fad in the late 90s for C-level executives that were taking a company public or closed a $500 million deal overseas. Those are for known people in the industries, and they can get away with a 1 page resume with a brief synopsis of all their huge successes. For the rest of us, we need about 2 pages to give us the room to really sell ourselves effectively to the reader, especially if you have, say, 10 years of experience. If you're trying to cram everything down onto 1 page just because you think it's a 1 page deal, it's not. Applying to jobs, 2 pages max, but 1 page resumes do have their place, especially if you're going to a hiring fair, a networking event, or if you're going in to sit down for an interview. Handing that 1 page resume over to the interviewer will have something to refresh their memory, something to reference, and potentially also to take notes on as they're interviewing. Outside of that, we're going to be moving on to our Q&A section. So, Amy, what do you got?
Thank you so much, Ben. This is a great presentation, so much wisdom contained, and I know our audience has benefited from this knowledge you've shared. So now we'll shift over to the live Q&A. If you have additional questions in the future, please reach out to SNHU Career Services. And lastly, please check out Handshake to find more SNHU career events in the future. Thank you for joining us.